already in the middle of fighting. And this is, I think, also very, very good opportunity to find people who want to end the war and who want to overcome this a terrible killing of people. What we have now is not a new era, it's no ideas, it's just the old thing, and it's even a mixture of 18th and 1900th century imperialist politics of the Russian Empire in this state, the denial of international law we had already by the Nazis and Mussolini and Japan in the 20s, or in the colonial wars by British Empire and the French and others. And people want to restore somehow the Cold War, because some people, I think, benefited quite well from the Cold War, and they seem even relatively happy to benefit from this now. Just to give you, before I start with my presentation, one glimpse of this idea of a Russian imperialism. This is not very usual to talk also of an imperialism of Russia, because we only speak of the imperialism of British Empire, French Empire, colonialism in Africa, also by Portuguese, German, Italian, and Spanish, Belgium, and other countries. But the Russian imperialism was something which has a particularity, because it could just happen in the neighboring countries, because they could conquer parts of Asia because they were neighboring countries. Asia was neighboring Asia. And so if you look here in this map, in the 16th century, this was Russia. This was only Moscow, a bit to the North Sea, a bit to the Baltic Sea, and nothing else. Only this brown area was Russia. It was even not called Russia, it was Muscovite region called. And then they conquered. Every Tsar was proud to conquer something. So this red thing where you have Kiev and Ukraine was conquered by Katharina the Great, and it was called New Russia. So this area here and down to the Black Sea with a huge part of Ukraine and Kiev was conquered by them, like to make the country bigger. At the same time, they also conquered some parts here in the Arctic Sea, and also here in Muslim countries, Kazakhstan and so far, and they went very far already in East Asia to get some islands and pieces. Then in the 19th century, every Tsar wanted something. Azerbaijan was conquered against the Ottoman Empire. Then later Georgia, there were war against the Cherkess minority, who partly became refugees even until Jordan. They went because it was also Ottoman Empire still here. And there were very heavy fightings against local populations that Russia made this empire. From certain times they had conquered Finland, parts of Poland, or even Alaska, which was sold to the US. And this is the whole idea. Also Stalin had to conquer something. He pushed Poland to the west to make the country bigger. So it's a bit this idea, a good leader of this country is making the country bigger. And Putin wants to be in this tradition of the Tsar, and so he needs something more to make this country bigger than as it was before. So, but I think countries who say are we are from Africa and we are against colonialism, but we are not against now this war. I think they do not understand this colonial side in it. It has really an old imperialist thing why countries like Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan or Azerbaijan should be part of an empire somehow controlled by Russia. So, but now my short introduction. I thought a bit, what can I present you, which is a bit new, but nevertheless, it's also preparing what we are doing, and it's a bit helping to come into the topic. And I want to talk about the discussions and breakthroughs about how to research reconciliation scholarly. And this means also that we can look into a gap, because the beginning to start reconciliation studies was that we found a gap in science. There are science about everything. You can make a science, but there was not a real scientific work on how people come together after grave incidents, how dictatorships or wars, civil wars, and their legacy can be overcome. We have a lot of security studies, how to protect against invasion people, or conflict studies, how to conduct a conflict, how to win it, maybe how to mitigate it. But there is not a way to think about reconciliation, how to bring people together again and to live together again. And this only started in the 90s. And there was a great observation of a gap, especially also because there were so many reconciliation processes in South Africa, in Rwanda, and Northern Ireland and other parts of the world. And so we wanted, and this is what I'm still very much fascinated about, to know how it functions. How it functions, that people understand each other better, how they come out of mistrust, of feeling hurt, of despise of the other, of hatred, and come together to mutual respect, and that they like to cooperate. And this is universal topics. This is individuals in their neighborhood or with their colleagues can go into such a situation, and it can be between organizations who are against each other, religions, religious groups can be very much against each other, or it can be states, political parties, parties in the civil war. And which factors are important? Is there a sequence to observe? What do first, what later? Are those factors general? Or is every process different? Cultural differences, scripts people have in mind, commonalities, and all these topics are interesting. And we just want to fill this gap and to put it on the table, which means that we also research reconciliation processes which do not succeed or get stuck, because this is also important to know this. If you want to study health, you also have to study sickness. And if you want to know how people get fit in their body, you must also study what takes fitness away. So, and it was very clear that we have to do transdisciplinary research. Dr. Yad will also talk more about this transdisciplinarity, that we cannot just use theories from one discipline, from political science or from psychology or from law or from sociology or from theology or something like this. We need them all to come together to understand what is reconciliation. And now we must know better what is reconciliation. If you want to make a science about something, you must also ask this often very difficult question: what is it? Biology, for example, is about bios, this means life. But what is life? It's a very difficult question. Psychology is about the psyche, the soul, but what is the soul and what can you measure? So it's always a bit hard question to ask, what is it? And we can also find reconciliation when we look into the thoughts of people in four quite different ways. There are people who say reconciliation is something ideal, maybe religious, maybe in heaven, maybe after our life, but we cannot reach it. It's something God can only make happen. If we believe this and use this term like this, okay, we cannot make a science about it. We can only declare and hope that it could happen one day, and we believe it will happen. The only thing we might make is to compare an ideal state with a non-ideal reality. But how to do something ideal, nobody knows how it is, to something which is the reality. Then there's a second approach people could take, like some psychologists do, for example, if they study love or trust. So they look into peak experiences and experiences where people experience this very strongly. Reconciliation is a moment when people take each other in the arms, where they are crying and feeling released. Such are the big examples and the peak experiences of reconciliation. But the question is also how to research on this, because those are moments which happen often not in a way that you can predict them. And what will you research? Maybe you can take the blood pressure of the people and the stress level who is decreasing when they live these great moments. But what will you find out about it? What we want to know is how to come to a more reconciled state if people want it and need it to have. And therefore, we are closer to a process approach, not a momentum or an ideal approach, but a process approach, that reconciliation is a process. And then we have a tradition in political science especially, but also by others who say reconciliation is a short time thing which might happen or not in the post-conflict setting. So first there's fighting, and then the fighting is stopped, is settled, and then we make reconciliation measures which can happen or not, but we try to get it so that people might not fight again. But this tradition, we found it's too narrow, because the thing is that if you look into actors who work for reconciliation, they often talk about reconciliation already in the middle of the process of a fighting. They talk about it, that they want reconciliation already, for example, in the Second World War. We have a lot of people who started to talk about reconciliation must be made after this war, already in 44, 43. Be it French writer Albert Camus, be it people in concentration camps in Germany from different nations who said we want reconciliation, or be it somebody like Churchill, who also said afterwards we must forget our problems and must start a new way to live together. Many different people with different approaches had this idea. Pax Christi movement, a Christian prayer movement, was started in 44 in southern France to pray for the healing of the Germans and to find together again. And now it's an important peace organization, Pax Christi, also labeled as leftist and pro-Palestinian in many issues, but it started in conservative Catholic environments. So we decided, speak for the Jena Institute, but quite a lot of researchers around the world decided to consider reconciliation as a multifaceted long-term process. It's a long road to reconciliation, about many generations, to overcome enmity and to enter into a different situation. It's not a short-time process and you make a bit in reconciliation, take some beautiful photos and then walk away, like perhaps some politicians would like it to be, but it's a long-time work and an organization of social learning and change which is needed. So, and therefore we adopted the definition. Reconciliation studies are the scholarly description, interpretation, and evaluation of processes of creating normal and, if possible, good relationships between states, groups, organizations, and individuals, reacting against past, present, or preventing future grave incidents. So people say also we need reconciliation now so that the war does not break out. And such as wars, grave incidents, civil wars, genocide, atrocities, forced displacement, enslavement, dictatorship, oppression, colonialism, apartheid, and other human rights violations and injustices. So for reconciliation, it's needed that there is a grave incident, which is often against human rights. And this grave incident is must be found, and it must be also determined who are the people who reconcile with each other. But now we were, and we still are sometimes, confronted with objections, and they often say, but how do you measure reconciliation? Reconciliation is something internal in the feeling of the people. It's somehow fluent, a bit fluent. Sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's not there. And in the first time, especially social psychologists had the idea we can only measure it in an indirect way. We measure proxies. Proxies mean, for example, we ask people whether they feel more trust for the others. Or we observe that they behave in a more trustful way. They interact more and in a freer way with each other. But this is, you measure not reconciliation, but trust. But you think if there is more trust, there might be also more reconciliation. But it's not bad in itself, but it's not so good for a new research, because you could also, you research trust and you are not researching reconciliation. So why don't you call it trust research and enter into the whole field of the trust researcher, for example. Then the people who wanted to make more about reconciliation, they said, we asked about the willingness to reconcile. Is the willingness to reconcile increased, for example, if they see a video of somebody from the other group expressing its regret for what has been done. And then you can maybe find in a questionnaire that most people say, yeah, we are now a bit more willing to reconcile with them. But for the research, a breakthrough happened that we, when we said, yeah, there is a possibility to have a subjective approach plus supporting objective indicators which measure directly reconciliation and not just proxies or indirect things, which are themselves also important, but we can also measure reconciliation in a direct way. And here's a dominant thing to measure is subjective, which means we have to ask the people whether the relationship is better or not. Because we can observe a lot of things and maybe they are only done in cold blood and without really feeling and thinking that the relationship is better. So therefore, it's important also in our definition of reconciliation to create normal and if possible good relationships, to put it into quotation mark. Quotation mark means that it refers to the subjective assessments of the relationship of the people who are in the relationship. So we cannot just say there's a good reconciliation happening between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and we look just from outside and do not ask them. So we have to ask the people, and we have to ask them. And normal relationships has nothing to do with some norms we put or something we see something is accepted or accept something which should not be accepted. Have acceptance. That's also nothing to do with any kind of normalization. This word has been used in this negative sense, for example, also in the Czech Slovakian history after the democratic move by Alexander Dubček, and there was an invasion by the Warsaw Bloc troops. There was 500,000 soldiers in the country. And then they reinstalled the Communist Party and they called this normalization, that everything goes back to this communist rule. And normalization, of course, is also not a good thing with Israeli occupation. But normal, we mean something else. We mean that we have more or less the same relationship with the person where this grave incidents happened as we have with somebody else. For example, there was a war between country A and B, and there was not a war between country B and C. So, and the country B has a normal relationship to country A again when it's more or less the same as it is with country C. Or you, the private life, you had a terrible dispute with one of your brothers, but not with the other brother. You always stayed friends, and the normal relationship is given when you can say, I have now the same relationship more or less with both brothers. Again, more or less. And a good relationship is if it is qualified by things like trust, appreciation, wish for cooperation, sympathy, or even love. You call it good. I like this relationship, and to say that something is good means always that you want it, that it stays, and you want often things to continue or to be more. For example, you go in a hammam and you get a massage, and you say, "Oh, this is good. This means, yeah, you make more. I like it. You should continue." And that's such a kind of relationship where you want more, you want things to continue. This would be a good relationship. So if we use now this subjective approach, how to assess this practically, for normal, we can ask items such as, when thinking about A, the perpetrator of a grave incident, and B, not the perpetrator, I feel no great difference in sympathy or trust. If A and B would ask me a favor, would like to live as my neighbor, or would ask me to help him in work he has to do, would ask to marry my daughter, how likely would it be that you agree? And then you can say, very likely, unsure, I would hesitate. And if it's the same thing you say for him and the other, where the grave incident did not happen, you can say the relationship is normal. And you can also use this Likert scale. You find an item, and 1 is totally agree, and 7 is I do not agree at all. Good relationships to detect it's the same kind of items, and you ask them and to measure whether there is trust, whether there is a good relationship, hope, or willingness to cooperate, and to intensify bonds and to strengthen them. There are always methodological problems, of course. Main group of problems is whether the items in the question is really understood by the participant, and also whether the participant feels free to answer and to say what they truly think. If they feel that you want something to hear, or it could have negative consequences if they do not say what they think you want to hear. So they will. It will be not such a good and reliable result you will receive. But then we have also objective criteria, and the objective means these are generally observable facts. For example, invitation in the house of the other can be a fact that the relationship is good, they want to meet. Or it can be that it's not only observed by the researcher, but you ask the people in it. You invite him more, but also why, was it a pleasant evening, and so on. So it adds some subjective elements. Or you can also ask experts on it. How do you assess all these things? And what can you assess? And here also again, if we define reconciliation as a process, which has many elements, you can directly also measure and look into the practices which are part of a reconciliation process. And then you can see this practice and this and that has been done. This has been realized. It has a lot of effects or not, according to experts or according to people concerned. And then we can go through every single practice of reconciliation, like political and legal provisions, which means conflict settlements, disputed questions should be clarified. If there is a war, there should be treaties about how to deal with the threat and demobilize the armies and reintegrate them. A creation of a common security architecture so that a never again can happen, also with guarantees, maybe protecting help from neighboring countries or internationals, apologies and reparations, cooperation regarding economic, legal, ecological, and international or other issues, meetings the other, encounters, also in the civil society, encounters on all levels. Especially these encounters were, for example, very important for the German-French reconciliation since the Élysée Treaty in 1963, where an enormous amount of encounters took place. Only the German-French Youth Office organized and funded, meanwhile, more than 300,000 projects where millions of people took part in it. About 2/3 of the cities in Germany have a partner city in France and can take part in partner exchange programs. So, which are on all levels, from the firemen to the schools to the singing club and the football team. And this creates really a deep connection in encounters. And there were also political encounters between the ministers and the head of state agreed in the regular meetings in this Élysée Treaty. Then we have the confrontation with history. You have to go into the history and work it through, arriving also to a common view of disputed issues, maybe by historians' commission, which could be built up. I think this might be also a way to settle some of the problems in the Middle East and North Africa, to have historians' commission who clarify some of the issues, what happened. Then also sharing narratives, also of the people concerned, who lived it, and that they might understand each other better and empathize. And the image of the other should be humanized, which can also be by modifying the discourse of leaders, media, school books. And here I might make also a short reference to our next Amina conference, Amina 3 conference in Jena. We are heavily organizing for it. It's from August 1st to 6th, 2022. And we have reconciliation, conflict transformation, and also peace education. And this is related also to another research topic. This means the theory of change we have, how change can happen. And focusing on education of youth is often related to a theory of change, which says we should work a lot on the young generation, because the young generation will in the future be able to create better relationships, and quite a lot of organizations work a lot of with young generations, but you must also test it. Given the fact that many countries are ruled by people which are 70 years and more old, maybe we should also focus on older people. However, this is an important conference, and you are very much welcome to present papers, to come to Jena, or to take part online. And we hope to host you for a wonderful conference this summer. Then other things you can also assess to research reconciliation are individual medical, psychological, and social help, including trauma therapies or elements of transitional justice, such as trials against perpetrators, truth and reconciliation commissions, restorative justice, and others. I think these are things you mostly know. One thing is not to forget in the research is that reconciliation is a long-term process, which is not linear, but rather there are ups and downs. You have not just a process which goes like this, but it goes up and down and up and down. And it must go up and down because you have to enter sometimes topics which are not easy for the partners to talk about. If you enter into a process against a perpetrator from another side, the other side might react negatively. Or if it's about reparations, there might be not everything easy. But it's important to hold on, and what we found out is that the most successful reconciliation processes we think happened between Germany and France. Is maybe the most successful. It's a process which was carried on now finally already since the end of the Second World War, and especially since the Élysée Treaty in 1963. And from this on, we can work on those issues. As we will talk in the semester about case studies now, I want to say something about those measures to ways to measure reconciliation. A case study in reconciliation studies is not just a description of things you find in a book on political science or history about the history of the conflict, but a case study in reconciliation studies will focus on those practices of reconciliation and describe them and assess them, whether they happened or whether there were things lacking. They have to enter in some subjective things you can measure, like the relationship is good or normal, and there are often polls how other populations are seen by one population. You have, for example, always this questions how other nations are seen, made by the Pew Institute, there you found, for example, that Germany, after the financial crisis, was seen negatively by some 80% of the Greek population. And it changed dramatically, because before more than 70% saw Germany positively increase. And then you see there is something happening, this the relationship. So such factors must be integrated. And then you can make a case study if you integrate those focus on reconciliation which happened. And with this you can find out also how if it's has different aspects, so the subjective view of one population, of the other, of researchers, of experts. So you can get a lot of different insights in having a more valuable scientific assessment of a case. Yeah, so I go now to the end. This is our logo in Jena, you know, a world we are caring for together in peace in all 5 dimensions, which means in the dimension of relationship with oneself, with the others, with the own group, with what we find gives sense to life, and also with nature and the environment. This is a bit the goal of everything, and I thank you very much for your time and your attention. I think we can take a small time if somebody has questions or wants to add something. You will also receive the PowerPoint. I must apologize, I did not see that I have a version with not corrected English orthography in it. That will be corrected and you receive a perfect.
Good evening. I have a question.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Who has a question?
You hear me? Sure.
Nizam, you have a question, so please talk.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for this informative lecture, really. My concern is about understanding against the concept of reconciliation and how can reconciliation be differentiated from normalization as perhaps two counterpart concepts. The second thing about the concept is the wisdom, or perhaps say that adhere that reconciliation does not aim necessarily to have a relations, let's say, a peaceful relations. Reconciliation does not erase hatred totally. So each part knows that there is problem, or there's still problems with the other part. So how you assess this sentence or these ideas? Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are very important questions. Can you hear me, by the way? All good. I found that some people wrote in the chat. I only see it now that it's a problem. Yeah, I think if you make just those research in a proper and exact way, you find directly the difference between a normalization and true reconciliation, because in normalization you find some maybe objective data which look a bit like reconciliation, because imposing power asks people who cannot freely speak maybe to say, we are good friends. This happened in Czechoslovakia in the 80s, let's say, that you could find people who said, we are a good friend, we are happy with the Soviet Union, that they avoided this 68 changing towards democracy, which is Alexander Dubček wanted. But we have the feeling that if people are talking freely and you integrate also people who emigrated, who are descendants, or people who are in a protected space, they speak differently about, and that this was a terrible tragedy what happens there. And this might be the same in Israel and Palestine. If some people are, Israelis can also find probably some people who are even Palestinian and say Israel is good and everything is not bad there, but Nizam cannot hear me.
Yes, now I hear you, Doctor. But before it was kind of I don't know. Mute.
So I think if you are aware that people must speak freely to assess reconciliation and to ask many people in different groups, it might be that there becomes, or it should always be like this, that it's a clear difference between what is normalization and reconciliation. Normalization tries a bit to create an image of reconciliation, but it is not reconciliation. It's a contrary of reconciliation. It's an imposed reality. Okay, and also by the objective things, some people might meet the other group if they are told to do it and cooperate, but they might not invite at home. Or if they are obliged to invite at home, it is not a really pleasant thing for them if they have not a reconciled relationship with the others. So it's I think we find a clearly also empirical difference between a reconciliation process and an imposed normalization. And it's completely different things. Reconciliation wants to heal the relationship and that people freely find that things are good now and not to impose some quietness and rule of others. And the other question was about that there is not necessarily peace. Of course, a reconciliation process starts in the middle of a conflict. And this conflict can still be violent, and there can be violence going on. for a long time. And at the same time, a reconciliation process is happening. And this is, I think, important not to forget that conflicts are also not bad in themselves. They are good, but they have to be transformed more and more in a non-violent conflict, which is dealt with respect and with a common search for solutions. And this is a long way often to go. So I agree that completely what you are saying, that there is not necessarily peace made when you make reconciliation. And I would even add something else. If one part is starting a war or violence and the other is defending itself, this defense is not against reconciliation. It can be necessary. Or if there is a huge oppression of a group and this group is taking the arms to fight again the others, then this is also can be part of reconciliation if it's done in the spirit we want to be on an equal level, respected, and we want a just peace. And we want not to kill people and civilians in a brutal way. Just this is not the spirit of a fighter for reconciliation, but it can go through this as well. So maybe some heard or saw that I'm thinking that now, for example, countries like Germany should send weapons to Ukraine in order to finish the war as soon as possible and to finish it in a way that there can be on the same level discussion and not an imposed peace by Russia happening. Yeah, thank you very much for this important question. Somebody else?
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
Yeah, it seems not the case. This question also reminds me that it is also great and important to work with people who work in military and in army for reconciliation. This is something we are not thinking, we are completely out, even if we on the other side also think that non-violent strategies in the Gandhi or Martin Luther King style have to be studied more and spread more and have also a lot of impact to make.
Yeah, I have a question, Professor.
Yeah.
Part of our work is reconciliation in the middle of conflict. So how do you see that happening in the middle of conflict? How you do develop reconciliation between people who have the habitus of hatred, for example, the culture of hatred for each other? Mm-hmm. So how can you move them from a phase of hating each other for like centuries? And they teach their kids, ancestors, that the only way to survive is to hate and fight and, you know, to really evolve in this way, and that they are struggling with it. Everyone has his own story. So, and everyone believes in his own culture and in his own story. So how can you develop this? How can you transform the reconciliation into in the culture for reconciliation, for example, between two entities that are in conflict, continuous conflict? This is I wanted to ask you. Yeah, and also Nora is asking as well, as it is even ethical to think about reconciliation when there is an ongoing conflict, occupation, incursion, and all of that. What do you?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about after the war. When you go into a war or fighting or fight occupation or incursion or such things, it's good to keep in mind that you probably will not win the war in a way that the others are all fleeing the country and that they are gone, or that they're all dead or something like this. Of course, today it's technically possible to kill all the others, but what will this be a world afterwards if you have made a genocide in the end? So this is, and this should be kept in mind. And therefore, I think it's ethical to think about reconciliation, because reconciliation is a lot about acknowledgement, and it's important to measure for what you are fighting and how long you are fighting. And if you want to have be acknowledged in a fighting, it's another goal than if you want to make your country bigger or to get financial win situations for yourself and so on. It can also keep you from demonizing the other too much if you think about reconciliation. And you can also look that on the other side, there are also people who do not want to destroy you. That there are also people who want peace, who want to live in peace and are against the war. That they are partly like you. They even become more and more like you when you are fighting the others. They have the same uniforms. The mothers are crying about their sons and their children, and people are fleeing on both sides, and all these things become more and more similar. And this, I think it's important to see and to address and to look to find ways out. You can search for also for diplomatic solutions. Of course, you should not become somebody who is like a traitor or telling secrets to the enemy, or is naive or trust in things where no trust is possible in a war. But I think it's important to think about reconciliation always. I saw you funny, you popped up on the screen. You lived also such situations in Myanmar, for example. I would be interested if you want about your thinking about this, if you want to say something.
Thank you, Martin. You're catching me off guard here. I'm actually thinking about what you've just said and about the question whether it's ethical. You know, I think often within a conflict, there is a very strong discourse that whatever you do for peace now is a betrayal. And so many people that are associated with reconciliation are often called traitors of their people, and are often called, are often accused of being of betrayal. But I think that between betrayal and reconciliation is a fine line, and I think it is justified when one thinks of the ultimate interest of your own community. At some point, one has to defend your community, but at another point, the aspirations of your community, of your country, will not be fulfilled unless the other person and the other group is also fulfilled. And so there is a sense in which reaching out is also in your own interest. It's not just in the interest of the enemy. It is in your own interest to reach out, because you can only fulfill your own aspirations if there's peace, and if the other group is also satisfied with their lot. So, as we always said in South Africa, white people will not be able to sleep peacefully, even if they've got big beds and big houses, if down the road black people are poor and destitute. And so I think it's in your own interest to do that. And then I also think that in terms of reaching out, I think some of the most important peace work is actually done while the violence is ongoing, by leaders who do one thing, and that is to acknowledge the harm that is being done. And that is the second step. You know, if you think of the cost of the war in Ukraine now, if you think of rebuilding, what it costs to rebuild a country, how impossible it is to really rebuild a society, then that cost of reconstruction, the cost of social reconstruction, the cost of physical reconstruction, it's impossible. So there's that case to be made to stop the harm, to stop the destruction, because it cannot be undone. You know, when ISIS was bombed out of Mosul, for example, the coalition forces bombed the old city of Mosul, and it ended up, I think, creating something like 3 times the amount of rubble of the Pyramid of Giza in the old city, 5 million tons or something, or 7 million tons. And how does one rebuild that historical city? You know, how do you even begin to rebuild the relationships of the people that are, that are destroyed? So for me, it is I agree with you, Martin, that that we have to think of reconciliation always as self-interest, but also as a way of stopping the harm, because the harm of war is, you can't undo it. It is devastating, and therefore one has to stop that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So Fadi is with us in Jena. We are so lucky about, and he knows very well Iraq and Myanmar and South Africa and many other places where those questions are very burning and applying.
As there is no much questions, can I have a last one, please? Question about reconciliation.
Yes. Yeah.
I noticed that part of your lecture was about narratives about the past. And everybody knows that as part of conflict, there is conflict on narratives.
Mm-hmm.
Here, of course, we differentiate between narrative and historiography. We're talking about narrative that the national movement itself construct about the past of a nation. And here in Palestine, as one land, two peoples, we have also two narratives about the past. The Zionist narrative that talking about a Hebrew or Jewish past in Palestine, about ancient states, and the Palestinian narrative, which are talking about different national past to Palestine, starting from Canaanites and etc. How can people create a reconciliation in narrative to construct one narrative for the past? Because as Palestinians, for example, we believe that the Israelis, the Zionists, has hijacked our past and make it as part of their past. So is there a way to think about reconciliation of narratives? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is also an important question, very much also discussed in research. There are, especially in Israel and Palestine, two quite one-sided nationalistic stories about the conflict, which has been also written in books, which gives this parallel history, for example. And what is told is often not wrong, but it's only one side, and the other side is respected. What can be done? I think there are different levels. One level is to evaluate the personal story of the people, to listen to what the people lived. This is not a nationalistic story. of one side or the other, but it's a story of the family of, so that name you Ravan, for example, what you lived and what the conflict meant to you and your family. And it might be the story of others, of both sides. And it's important that these stories and that what people went through is appreciated, and it's helpful for peace if people from the other side listen to the story and react in an empathic way. This is one level. This is a level of the individual stories, because they are often different from and have only a few aspects of this national story. Then we have the question of for historians. Israel-Palestine, it's a lot of work has been done about every detail of the Nakba and of the different wars, also of the history of Zionism. There are libraries of books, and since several decades also from excellent Palestinian historians. And also in there is in Israel this school of new historians who have a much more critical view of Israel's narrative. This leads to a hope I have, especially for Israel and Palestine, that there would be the same thing we had between Germans and Czech about the German forced displacement after Second World War, a historians commission, which could work together and identify in a high quality scientific process what people can say, this is very well confirmed that this happened and this can be classified as this act of ethnic cleansing, for example, which seems undeniable that it happened, acts of ethnic cleansing of Palestine. And but this, if a commission would say from both countries, maybe also internationals in it as well, together this happened, and if this such a commission would have also money to make it public and to tell it in the whole societies and exercise pressure on the ministries of education, that it could go in a way that finally those, especially Israeli, incredibly stories of the heroes who only fought against so many Arab countries and did never something wrong, that this story will be finally completely eliminated from school teaching and from the thinking of the people. I think this would be my hope. And also my question, I often ask to people who are a bit in this field, whether there is a chance to go ahead with this and to make this happen. And then you have the legal historians discourse, which is again another thing, because it's something else what you can prove according to the framework of a legal system, and what historians consider as a proof, because there are some restrictions in the legal field. You cannot overjump, and it's often more difficult to establish something that happened also as a legally accepted truth. But also in this field should be work done. And in order to clarify what has to be done to create more justice. So different kinds of stories, different contexts where stories are told, are used, and stories should become also more diverse. They should include feelings, they should include thoughts, possibilities, which are not just in phase with nationalist story, because the story is often more complex. There was maybe a family from the other side who was friendly and helped, or there were some other things which are not so well fitting in just unilateral story. Yeah, thank you very much.
There is another question, Professor. There's another on the chat for Wael, I guess. He's asking, in your opinion, which of the two is more difficult in reconciliation experience? Religion, religious or political or ethnic conflict? In your opinion, which of the two is more difficult? Reconciliation experiences? Is it in religious reconciliation experience or political or ethnic?
Yeah, it depends always on what on the situations. There can be political, ethnic, and religious conflicts which are very easy to approach through reconciliation, and there can be conflicts which are very difficult to approach through reconciliation. Depends on what it's about and what are the positions in the people take religiously, politically, or ethnically. Just to give an example, if there would be, first of all, you must, of course, also define what is religious conflict. Is a religious conflict a conflict where religious people are motivated mainly by religious goals? Or would something, let us say, like ISIS as a phenomenon, would it be a religious conflict? And if you would say they are very religious because they wanted to impose some religious rules, it is very difficult to resolve such a conflict if they are considering minorities like Yazidi or like Christians as people who should not live in the area, should leave, and this is very difficult to resolve. But in other parts, religious conflicts are very easy to find solutions. Same for political and ethnic issues. And often all three aspects come into a conflict. Also in Russia and Ukraine, you have majorities are Orthodox Christian in both countries, but they created ways of being Orthodox in both countries, which are very nationalistic, and this brought religious aspects very strongly in the conflict, and it was ethnic between ethnic Russians and ethnic Ukrainians. Even if many people are from mixed families, they started a kind of different polarization between ethnic things. So more you bring in, more it becomes difficult. But Wael wants also to ask something more.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Anyone wants to ask a question? Do you have any other comments? Zinat, you're most welcome. First, just a moment, Zinat. I think Wael wants to had his hand raised for a long time, so we'll give it to him first, and then we go back to you. Yes, Wael, you can speak.
Thank you. Actually, the previous questions were from Dr. Anzi. It wasn't from me. I would like just to comment. It's not a question. Actually, I feel more comfortable with this meeting after I listened to Professor about reconciliation, and even when I was reading some of the writing of Professor Martin and even Dr. Iyad and other materials in reconciliation, I have more clear idea about it. And I can say that I accept the approach you subscribe to, Dr. Martin, which is reconciliation is a process. And that the approach is that the reconciliation starts during the conflict. It's not the end of the conflict, it starts during the conflict, because conflict has more than one level, and it has more than it has more than status, one status or more than one level. So moving from one level to another, it can be considered as a success. That's why we say conflict transformation. We don't need to jump from hatred to love. It's not one jump. It is a long process, and sometimes it will be a success just to stop violence with even with some kind of maybe keeping memories and keeping some dreams, like the situation we live in Palestine. Actually, I don't think that whether the Palestinian or either Israelis, they should not be asked to drop their dreams of controlling the land of Palestine. Each side maybe hope that he is the one who is in control. But practically, both sides can't achieve such results. That's why reconciliation is not being kind to the other, or even to forget the other. It is being rational and being more practical to yourself and to your children and to your future. And this may open the door to more acceptance of the others. So you don't need to you don't need to just to jump, as I said, because it's like marriage. Some people they marry, they are in love to each other. Sometimes you just stay in a marriage just for the interest of the children or the family, and other kinds of marriage of convenience. It's your interest to go and choose which stage you or which level you want to go with the conflict. That's what I want to say. So as I said, I feel more comfortable subscribing to such approach, which says that reconciliation is a long process. It has more than one stage, and maybe one stage will open the door to move towards better stage, but you don't need to jump or to go in one sudden shift to love or even to full peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Agree.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much. Zinat, you can also speak if you like. I'll give the turn for Zinat, and then Muhammad would like to speak as well. We have another third question as well.
Thanks for this informative presentation. And I want to talk about the practices of reconciliation. So the practice is the same everywhere. Reconciliation should be the same everywhere, but it refers to the context. If I want to compare between the reconciliation in West or in South Africa with the Middle East, I can see a major dilemma is the ownership. For example, in South Africa, the process is initiated by the people, by the state. France and Germany, they initiated the process. But in Middle East, we cannot see the same practice because there is outsiders and the foreign intervention. If we can take Lebanon as an example, foreigners imposed the political agreement. Reconciliation in Iraq, we cannot reach the reconciliation in Libya. So I think the practice and the foreign intervention is the main dilemma in Middle East, and that's why we cannot see successful reconciliation processes or transitional justice in this area.
Yeah, this is an important question. The influence from abroad and the ownership question. I think the influence from abroad is often underestimated, either in conflicts as in reconciliation processes, because we often think that the people are fighting somewhere, but there is a lot of connections with other actors abroad who are somehow keeping the conflict going, providing financial resources for conflict parties, hoping for influence zones, and so on. And if the international context must always be much more addressed, they often play not such a positive role, the internationals, but they can also play a positive role, that they want peace and they can do something for it. So, this is, I think, important to have them in the responsibility and to take them into the process. On the other hand, they should not lead the process against or without the people on the ground. The people on the ground are the ones who are the most important stakeholders in all this. And therefore, the people on the ground should decide whether they want to go for reconciliation or not. And if they want to go, they should be empowered to be themselves the owners of the process. It's also in reconciliation studies, the previous stage, 2000 was a famous book of Scott Appleby about the ambivalence of the sacred, where he also spoke about reconciliation as needed. And he spoke still about interventions, that interventions are important from abroad to bring reconciliation to a context. Ever since, this has been a lot criticized, and they say there should not be something like brought from somewhere else to a country to make reconciliation. But there is international cooperation, but the reconciliation should be made by the people. Reconciliation in Palestine by the Palestinians, in Algeria by the Algerians, in Lebanon by the Lebanese, and not by French or German, or also not by us. This is also not our role in Jena. We just put it on the table as a new study for those who want to learn how it could work and what could be obstacles, and who want to research this. And if people in your country or yourself want to do it, we support you by this knowledge, but and also by other things if we can, but the ownership must be by the people.
Yeah, thank you. There is Muhammad bin Salim.
Can I say something before?
Okay.
Let us say that will,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I'm talking about international intervention, I'm not talking about real reconciliation. We have concrete examples. So we have a Taif agreement in Lebanon. It's imposed by outsiders. We have Al-Ula agreement in Gulf. So imposed suddenly by outsiders. And I think we are waiting for more agreements in Iraq, in Libya, in Yemen, everywhere in Middle East. So in this area, I don't think we have real reconciliation process because they are not working on restoring the good relationship with societal relationship. Only it's about the agreements, and this is the main dilemma in Middle East.
Yeah, I agree. This is more conflict resolution in this approach to make agreements and to calm a bit the thing, but it's not a reconciliation process. Yeah.
Yes, so we go to, can we go, we can still have like 15 minutes. We go to Muhammad bin Salman, bin Salem. Welcome, Muhammad, you can ask a question. And then we have Ramon.
Thank you, Dr. Yeah, thank you. This is Mohammed bin Salim. I am from Libya. Thanks a lot for this, a huge opportunity for me. I'd like to ask you, Professor, about reconciliation, because I am from Libya and I have been a witness of reconciliation process here in Libya. And thank you even for Zinat, because she brought very important information for the proposing solution for the local issues such as here in Libya from outsiders. But I have to say that reconciliation process here in Libya are not going so well since the outsiders playing the main role here for the Libyan scene. Because I've been a part of reconciliation process here. My question is this a good strategy once we focus on a mutual or a common ground between the different parties here, for example, here for Libya, we do have different parties for the local conflict. So I've been touching like a positive reaction once we started to moving the parties to sit down in one table. Once we showed them the common ground of the legal consequences, because I have a PhD holder in law. So we try to show the different parties, the Libyan different parties, about the legal consequences could affect the parties in Libya negatively. So we should suggest that it is good for all Libyan parties to sit down at one table and trying to bringing a local solution instead of let the outsiders playing the main role. So my question is it a good strategy to show them the bad side of not sitting down and not sitting for reconciliation in order to find a solution for the local conflict here in Libya, such as the negative consequences for our children, for any parties in Libya in the future? They could affect them badly in the future, whether you are on this side or that side for the Libyan conflict, is still affecting our children for the future. Is it a good strategy to build on this in order to move on with the reconciliation in any conflict? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's good to be aware of the danger a country is in when it's in a conflict and it does not find easily a way out, because there are examples in the world where a conflict is ongoing since many decades, and there are countries where almost nobody would like to live because it's really very terrible, this long-term wars we have in some countries in Africa, for example. And this is, I think, something responsible politicians and people who are talking about peace should always also have in mind, that it can always go more down, and people could go into a famine and not have enough to eat. Things like happened in South Sudan or in Somalia, and many other things could happen which can become worse and worse. So it's important to find a way out. There's a quote I like a lot from Confucius, Chinese, who says, a man learns of three ways: through thinking, through experience, and through suffering. So thinking is very rare, that people think what would be the best. So experience is already a bit more, that people make good experiences and think about the good experience that they are possible. But most people only learn by suffering, unfortunately. And if therefore, I think it's good to think about suffering and to make it clear that there might be something like, we do not want to go there. We do not want to go down until this, that we can see in other countries. And maybe also that there might be a never again, which was so important for Europe after the Second World War, that there will be never again of concentration camps, of genocide, of fascism, of war. And this is, I think, an important motivation to be used. And it can create a common ground for people who might think they have no common ground, but they might not wish to live in an extremely poor and dangerous country and to have their houses destroyed and no security for their grandchildren and such things.
Thank you, Professor. We have Rawan.
Finally.
Yeah. And then we can,
Thank you, Professor. I have two quick questions. The first one about Ukraine. Well, you said you're with Germany sending some weapons and helping the Ukrainians, but then you said also like the international interference or like the outsider interference into the conflict might affect negatively the reconciliation. So how can we assure that we are supporting one nation, but at the same time, we're not playing with the balance for a reconciliation process afterwards? And my second question is about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. When you were saying, like we can send historians to investigate and study the different histories or the different narratives that we have. But we have already like Avi Shlaim and Ilan Pape writing about the history, which is also in line with the Palestinian story or Palestinian narrative, but they were unable to to force or at least to convince the Israeli government to take any action in that line. So how can we assure that even if we send historians and truth commissions, that they are able to influence the actors in the process or the government to take part in a reconciliation process?
Yeah, thank you very much. I start with Israel. I think for a country which gives himself as a country of a cultivated nation like Israel wants to be, it would be a bit difficult to oppose to a historian's commission more than to oppose to some historians. They always can say this Ilan Pape is too much pro-Palestinian, and there are also other historians which we follow more. But if there is a commission of respected historians, which can include people like Ilan Pape and Noor Masala, for example, as a Palestinian historian, and that people then, but also others who are maybe more mainstream, and they say, but this is clear, the evidence is so clear, and there are scientific standards. I think it's difficult for Ministry of Education to say we teach history not as it is scientifically seen. And I hope of this pressure, that this pressure will play out, because also parents do not want their children often to be taught by ideology and not by the newest history. And so I hope this can have an impact and make more pressure than if there are convincing arguments in the book of individual historians, if there's a commission bilateral, which could be organized on a scientific level. Don't need to have the state in. that they nominate people, but they could come in. It could have help also, but it would also help if they are it's just a scientific project. This is a thing, and for Ukraine, also thank you. It's the thing is that Ukraine is militarily weaker than Russia, much more, and therefore the possibility is quite big that that Russia will at least win a lot of territories. Maybe they will not win the war because there will be still resistance, and it might become a long war as it was in Afghanistan or other places in the world where the countries with more military weapons did not win in the end, but they could impose a lot a long time, and then they had to leave. So so I think this should be avoided, and it would be better to have relatively soon a feeling that that peace would make sense, and that also Russia enters a peace negotiation, which will be not just an imposed peace. That now it seems that their position in negotiation is that they want another government, they want a huge part of the country to be separated from Ukraine, and this is of course more a dictated peace, which is will not help for reconciliation. Therefore, I find it good if other countries help with weapons, but in the negotiations they should be not too much imposing something, but more supporting reconciliation, and let the word to the Ukrainians and the Russians.
Thank you, Professor. So I think we have now like 1 minute to conclude this session. And I thank you very much, everyone, for attending the session of the PhD students. It was really nice to have you all, and also with the professors as well, of course. Thank you for attending our first session of the PhD students. We would like to continue our second session with the professors after that to talk about our projects of developing a master program. Professors, do you want to continue in the second session, or shall we continue? What do you think, Professor?
I would propose to have a 5 minutes break.
Yeah, of course.
People can take a short moment to relax, and then we stay just together for the professors to talk about the master program and where we are and how things are continuing. And I wish all the best for the students, for the PhD students now, to have a good Friday, as the Christians say, and a good day of Ramadan as well, and soon beautiful dinner and eating something together.
Yeah,
so all blessings. Thank you for that time. Let us come together now. It's 3 o'clock here in Germany, and so in 5 minutes, 3:05, I would be there again, and then we can start. Is it good?
Yeah, is that okay? So we can have a like a relaxation, or we'll start in 5 minutes.
Bye. Hello.
Hi, Laura. Nice to see
you.
you. Yeah. Okay, we start in how 5 minutes? Is okay? Yeah. Okay. So start 5 minutes.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you for coming back from the break. We are starting now quite soon. Hello everybody. Can you hear me now? Is it good?
I can hear you very well.
Yes,
Thank
Professor,
you.
we can hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Now we have a meeting about the master programs, and we thought to take not more than until 4 o'clock our time, so a bit less than 1 hour, but to exchange and to talk a bit about the actual situation of the master programs we are preparing, and you are working very hard on it in our partner universities. And I pass on to Yad because we agreed that he will a bit guide the discussion now.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for continuing with us in this after the session. Yeah. And yeah, we would like to tell you how we are seeing things. So we want to develop those 10 sessions, and those 10 sessions once every week. And this once every week where we discuss the master program for each university alone and see how we can help and assist them in finishing what they have problems in the project itself and in the master development curriculum. So we have here Fanny Dutois is very experienced in that, and we have also Laura as well to assist us and help us, and also Rawan as well, and Hiba, and all of you. So you are most welcome, and to take part of our time to really understand how we can help you. So this is why we are here, and we have 10 sessions before our workshop in Jordan. So this is how we are planning it. 10 sessions, developing the master program for each country, helping them in development. And then we have a meeting in Jordan, and then meeting in July in Innsbruck, and then back to Jena in August for our symposium where you can present your work. So this is how we are planning it. So it's going to be like a season, and then you have 9, 10 is free, and in December we meet again before the pilot, and the next third year we start our pilot. So this is our plan. And if who would like to start, I think maybe who would like to start and speak about his master program? So we have Dr. Omar, are you with us? And Hiba from Patra. We have as well Nizam from Al-Istiqlal University. And there was also the people from Al-Azhar University. Are they still here? They are out. That's why I kind of missed them.
Well, yes, here.
Yeah, but no, the other professors are not here. No, they are in. Okay.
They come back.
Yeah. So I just tell them exactly what when they go in. I'm sorry for that. Hello, professors. I just saw you are coming back in. I didn't see it before. So Professor Abu Saada is from Al-Azhar University. Maybe we can make a round so people can know who they are. What do you think? We do a round so people know who we are. I can speak for the University of Jordan, as me and Professor Leiner, we are working with the University of Jordan. He couldn't attend because he has the dean has something, but he will attend all the time. He attended the lecture, but he told me he have another thing in this hour. But I also work with him in the University of Jordan, and what they developed, they are developing digital humanities for peace and reconciliation studies, and how digital humanities can be applied to develop reconciliation processes. So we are teaching this master program. We teach master program in digital humanities and reconciliation practices. And then the students will take something in humanities and apply it something in the digital world, in digitization. So this is how we are working on this master program in Jordan. So this is, and now he has about 10 students that are applied for this project. And this is what he told me before. And they are going very smoothly. And what they did, they have 2 sections. One section is reconciliation and the practices of reconciliation, and the applied philosophy for reconciliation and applied for Nicias. And then they have digital humanities. So this is how they are combining international relations with the digital humanities that they have. So yeah, this is about University of Jordan. So next, who would like? I would like also to. I don't want to speak the whole time about University of Jordan. So maybe now, maybe who other professors would like to speak? Professor Abda Anazi or Professor Khemari are welcome as well to speak about your master program. Also, Omar, Professor Omar, as well with the Hiba. And if you need any translation in Arabic, we can help. We can assist. Everything is okay. So, anyone who would like to start about his master program? Dr. Nizam, are you with us?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. So maybe you can share with us where you started, and maybe we start with you because you said good evening, and tell us what we catched you.
How are you again?
How are you, Professor Omar, as well? So
I'm fine. And Dr. Martin,
yeah,
you are fine.
yeah. So okay, that's.
So we are going to present our master programs now. In this,
yeah. If you want to start, and you can go with us little by little. Tell us what happened and what you are doing now at Istiqlal, where you are in the project. What did you do? Where's your curriculum? And then not dive in the problem, but just speak about what you did until now in the project to do the curriculum. Well, nice to see you. You have a very sunny day.
Yes, it's Jericho. You know, you see Jericho in the evening. So, and nice. You can see the wind. It's windy day. Okay. So good evening for everybody. Good evening, Dr. Leiner.
Yeah, hello.
We would like to see you here in Jericho, perhaps in October or.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we would. Like
and
to
you
come
all,
as
of
soon
course.
as it makes sense.
Of course. So with our master program, I want first to present a brief about the concept of this program. What is it? And the progress, where we are, and what challenge perhaps we are facing. First of all, the program, the MA program at Al-Istiqlal University is about security and communal peace. And this approach of understanding reconciliation is with its relation to security, because we firmly believe that security is not only about rule of law, even if rule of law is central to security performance, and security is a tool to reach equality and to achieve justice. But in some contexts, like the Palestinian context, law itself is not a solution for achieving either security, either communal justice. It has to do to different political, economic, and social potentials that marks or characterize the Palestinian community as an Arab community. So we look also that that security can be a tool for reconciliation, and it can be mainstreamed as part of communal peace and to prevent communal conflicts. It has to do with the policies that is achieved or formulated. So we decided that our master program at Al-Istiqlal University will have this topic as well. We started that with scheduling the program, and perhaps if I have the chance, I can again bring the presentation, because I thought that we will present our program in the next meeting. So let me please bring the presentation and share it here. Okay. I can, if it is allowed, I can present in Arabic, the presentation in Arabic, and I will speak in English because this is the last version, and it's different from the first version that we had in our last meeting in Vienna.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, the last
So
version is of course very much welcome. Yeah.
yes, so we can just to make a share again
I think you can
of the
share
screen here. Okay. So is it? Can everybody see here?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the schedule of our program. It's 36 credited hours, 24 are obligatory, 6 hours are optional, and 6 is for the thesis. We have essential readings in security. We are here talking about obligatory courses. Essential readings in security. We have communal. We have conflicts, civil conflicts, its reasons and reflections, international reflections. Reconciliation, senses of reconciliations and conflict resolution, communal peace and rule of law. Methods of scientific research, communication and reconciliation. This is another course, the 6th course. The 7th is transitional justice and communal peace. Sorry. Also, the 8th is human security and communal peace, and then we have the thesis. The optional courses are strategy and security theory, building, the second obligatory, building of security policies in a state, and then we have political systems and security systems. The relation between, it describes the relation between political systems and security systems, and then we have communal police and community peace. The 5th, which also 3 credit hours, is about security sector governance in a state. We have already settled the description of all what we have in the program, the main courses. We have this course descriptions for all of them. And then we are now in internal approval. We have finished the internal approval inside the university. And then we will go to approving this program with the Palestinian Ministry of Education. We expect that our submission will be next month by the beginning of May as well. We believe that we will have a good opportunity to have accreditation for this year and to start the pilot courses for the next year, which is in 2023, hopefully. We have some discussions inside the university regarding the concepts that, you know, that we held a workshop in Vienna, and before that was an online workshop. So we had a workshop in the security science department in our university, and there was a discussion about the program, about the course descriptions, the output of this program, why this program is, how can this program be adopted by our department. And then after that, the council of the department has approved the proposal. We send it to the scientific research committee, and scientific research committee has asked some alternations on the proposal. And after that, it was ready for submission. So we expected after we are at vacation in Ramadan. We expect that after Ramadan we can start by submission to the Ministry of Higher Education. This is in brief about our program, but if there is more questions about, so we can discuss and answer together. Thank you.
Can you just go up a little bit so we can just see it again? Just go up a little bit for the beginning, and or see the courses that you put. Okay, scientific methodology from those courses. Those, yeah. Yes. So these are the essential of the courses, like the readings on security. So this is like kind of literature review that you did here, right?
This essential readings in security, this is a preparatory for everybody who want to go through security program. So it has essential subjects and basic subjects in security sciences that has to describe and define what security is, what security types, what security aspects. Then it goes to the strategy and its development. Then part of this course is about security policy in the state, national security, security sector in the state. And after that goes to the main security schools and theories, their implications in international and domestic security in the state.
Okay, where is the reconciliation? Because in our last workshop we said that you have to develop the basics of reconciliation. Can you go down?
Yes, sure. We have here about conflict, about civil conflict. Yes, their reflections and reasons. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here is talking about civil conflicts, not necessarily civil wars. You know,
okay.
There's as let's say an old phenomena, and the main security threats. Here it goes to the reasons of these conflicts, their types, their motivations, their how they develop through history, how they are connected with the specific political systems and specific structural systems or economic as well. So also it goes to the impact of ethnic or sectoral or religious tensions in making these conflicts and wars.
And here we have this conflict resolution. I have a word on it. We don't do conflict resolution anymore. We are doing conflict transformation. Yes. So this has to be fixed, not conflict resolution, but conflict transformation. When you are saying reconciliation studies and processes, I think it should be conflict transformation.
You mean with this course or in general?
Yeah. No. In general, we like in the reconciliation studies. We don't do resolution. It's transformation. What we are doing is conflict transformation. So if you say reconciliation studies and conflict resolution is not, they don't come together. So yeah, even our project, it's conflict transformation. So I prefer that you put here.
Yes, it's
what we propose, but I think because the project as well is conflict transformation. And today conflict resolution has been like a very term used very badly, and because you can never get a resolution, and sometimes after they do an agreement of peace, Oslo, now they are fighting, and the Palestinian Israelis as well. They didn't do any resolution. And I think what is happening always is conflict transformation. So this is one of the things that you have to consider, how we can help you in teaching the conflict transformation and how it can happen in philosophy, for example, applied philosophy for conflict transformation. This can happen for reconciliation process. So this is part of what we are doing. So this is what I would amend. Anyone has any other questions? You can also jump in, and professors, Fanny, if you have any comments of what you have shown. Yeah, Professor, you can come in.
Yeah, I would also like to underline how important it is that there is reconciliation studies and conflict transformation.
I can't hear you, Dr. Martin. If there's a problem in mic, can you please repeat?
Mic, probably.
Yeah, now it's good. Now it's back. You're back.
So, yeah, I would underline how important it is to have reconciliation studies and also conflict transformation in it, because reconciliation studies, there will be a standard, an international standard, in a few years about which programs can be approved by the International Association for Reconciliation Studies as a reconciliation master. And the minimal requirement is that you are doing an introduction to reconciliation studies, that you make case studies, and that you are making something practical. So, and somehow also engage with transdisciplinarity and theories to grasp the complexities. This is discussed, but what is needed is the introduction to reconciliation studies. And I asked myself whether it could not just be an introduction to reconciliation studies. Of course, conflict transformation is very close to it, and there's a lot of overlap between both. But it would help for the future recognition and expectance to make introduction to reconciliation studies, and then some case studies, like case studies from also far from your place. And in your place is often the best to have a bit of mixture and practical things, maybe how to apply reconciliation in a certain conflict, which can be a communal conflict, how to make reconciliation happening when there is a problem between two families somewhere and violence is breaking out. So this could also completely apply, or with ecological questions of how to get a more peaceful relationship in a situation where environmental problems become more and more important in places like the places where you are, water issues and agriculture and so on. This would be my proposition to make it stronger. And we also can propose you as Iyad said, our support. We can even figure in your program a certain time as people who are committing to teach reconciliation introduction until you have people who will teach it. So the goal is, of course, that you will have people who teach it in some years, but during the project financement, we have money that we can teach it and we will be paid, and we will also be willing through the online campus and things we will build up during the next year to be available still for a certain time to give at least online teachings for you. And if there is some funding, maybe also from your place to travel there, we would also come there to teach it with the goal that in the near future, somebody from your people will teach it. And
Okay.
so this is what we are proposing to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Leiner, Dr. Iyad as well. And I appreciate really your proposals. And actually, this is a kind of debate, even inside the university, about the thing that has to do with conflict resolution, and whether is it conflict resolution or conflict transformation, because the new type, that understanding that is conflict transformation, is more appropriate, as Dr. Iyad has mentioned before. But for part of those who engaged in these discussions, they still say that conflict resolution is the word that can contain other types of conflict management, for example. So it's not a matter, it's not a cynical thing to say. It's not cynical that it must or not must. If we go here, or you notice here to the course description. So this course is produced to reconciliation as a science, as an art, as an approach, which is parallel to law in order to reach to the justice, and not as a law approach. So this course defines reconciliation, as I said, as a science and as practice, and it goes to reconciliation, its roots, its techniques, its negotiational tactics, its security and political frames, and its legal frames as well. So it goes to their levels, either on the domestic or local or international. So it goes to conflict resolutions, their management, and reconciliation as part of conflict resolution. Now, if we go to conflict transformation, which I personally prefer conflict transformation, but as I said, it is conflict resolution still remain to describe in a specific course, not to go to a whole program, master program. With regard to the practicing, and we rely here on experts from Armenia, you yourself, Dr. Martin, Dr. Iyad, as well, to be part of, you are welcome to be part of this program, teaching and laying some international practices about reconciliation, lesson learned from this from the experience in the history. We can together work on developing some literature on it, because I think what the available literature is not specific with the course description. So we need to work perhaps more in order to define the proper literature for these courses, especially in the pilot year. So after that, we can have them all.
So you want literature means like content, books, and books, literature, content for the courses, right? But I prefer that you cannot work, we as a reconciliation process, it cannot work with conflict resolution. This is it's a scientific term that is wrong. It's not that it is wrong. It is kind of like they don't come together.
Okay.
So like reconciliation,
does not match.
They do not match. This is the issue. Like what Professor Leiner was trying to say, that if you give this to an international committee of reconciliation studies, to say that you have a reconciliation studies, and the minute they see that you put conflict resolution with reconciliation studies, they'll understand you are not doing reconciliation studies. You are doing conflict resolution. So it's like the big fish is eating a small fish. It's like they're fighting, you know what I mean? So when you say conflict resolution and reconciliation, how this happens? Reconciliation is a process and keeps changing and changing and changing to the better future of the two people that are in conflict. That's why it went into conflict transformation. So what we are saying is that you need to, let's say, internationally accredited or like the International Reconciliation Studies Committee, they will look at it as you are not doing reconciliation studies, but doing more conflict or resolution. So this is like, we don't want you to fall in this. And then your whole project becomes conflict resolution because you didn't say conflict transformation. So maybe you can add conflict transformation somewhere to tell people that it is conflict transformation. There is, in reconciliation, there's no resolution. The resolution is not. You just see like you start buying a house, or you buy a land first, and then you build the house, and then you get married, and then you have children, and then you take them to. It's like a process, and this is reconciliation, and it grows with you. So you don't reach a resolution at the end. But there's other conflict reconciliation processes that say after you write an agreement, like South Africa, for example. Professor Fanny Detwa can talk us about that, how they think about it. But I think it's more appropriate, if you want to call it a reconciliation master program, it must have conflict transformation in it. You don't want to, like people who are teaching conflict resolution now, as Professor Leiner said, it might be dropped after a while. Nobody wants to work with it. Like I can tell you from our Innsbruck folks, if they were here and they saw that you're writing conflict resolution, they will not agree with you on that. So a lot of people who teaches peace studies and teaches reconciliation studies and peace building, they don't recognize that there is resolution. So we want to make it, it's very good what you did. I think it's amazing. And I think it's you're in a good position, and you're in a good, but that's why we are with you, to tell you that you have to do it a conflict transformation, because the project is a conflict transformation and reconciliation studies, and you have to prove it in the future for people in the EU that you're doing it, because if they brought for us the experts again, and they look that you still put conflict resolution, they say, oh, they didn't take anything of, because I heard that this term even might be dropped. What you will do when they drop the term. And the best thing is as I see it, as we study it here in Vienna and in Innsbruck as well, I can say that for them as well, that conflict transformation must be in the project, in your master program. This is a new thing. Resolution is done by many, actually Arab American University kept using the conflict resolution, and now it's very an old
Yes,
term.
I am aware about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why I tell you, don't go their directions. Go to another direction and say it's conflict transformation. This will make your program more special.
Dr. Yaz is just a course, not the whole program. So the whole program, as you know, it's communal peace. So it's talking about communal.
But it's important. This is the basic, the first.
Yes, I agree with you. But just to take it, this is just one course that the main focus in it is reconciliation more than conflict resolution. But I agree with you. I agree they don't match together, and we need to rethink how can we relate reconciliation with conflict.
Exactly. Or just put reconciliation studies or basic reconciliation processes. For example, like not in conflict resolution, just write reconciliation processes. And that would be like a start for to understand what is reconciliation, definition of reconciliation, case studies of reconciliation. So like if you want to make the course only on reconciliation, it would be also a good idea. Anyone has any other ideas that you can, maybe Laura can help us? Maybe, what do you think, Laura?
Yeah, so actually I had Dr. Nisa. Hello, I'm Laura Villanueva. I had a few comments and a suggestion, perhaps, if then everybody else can also chime in and let me know if it would work or not, because you have all been working on this together and I just arrived. So the first point is, for example, and I'll speak from a personal point of view here. I studied a conflict analysis and resolution, but during the whole time that I was in 15 years of practice, I knew I was doing conflict transformation, except that this goes back to the history of how you start the field of conflict analysis and resolution. Now, the value of conflict analysis and resolution is the actual analysis. For me, it's always been the analysis. If you're able to keep that as something pivotal in your work, then I think that that's a start. The second point is, I do think that you're right, Dr. Nissan, for example, that change, and also Iyad, you said it will be dropped and that will happen. But I think, Dr. Nissan, in terms of, there are resolutions to things that are immediate. And of course, everything is always in a never-ending transformation, especially when you're talking about reconciliation processes, but you do have still, I think there has to be also responding to the culture that exists at the moment, and how you're able to still keep that notion when you're teaching perhaps, but of course then change it in the actual documents in order to be able to respond to the institutional needs that are going to be asked of the program being presented. But for myself, I would understand, I can't just go into a classroom and then just say conflict transformation and just put resolution aside, because that's still part of the culture that's moving towards that transformation. For example, like I said, I knew I was doing transformation and I spoke about transformation outside, but when I was in the academic setting, I was speaking about resolution. And yet I was doing the same thing. I was doing analysis in both spaces, and I understood that it was a long-term process. So that's what I wanted to add, if that would be helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate what you have proposed. And perhaps it's here proper to say that these things all time has debate, and it's all time we are talking about new concepts, how to mainstream these concepts with discipline. You know, in our universities there are disciplines. You know, and when you come with a new generated concept, you have to take much time, much effort to make this firm, to make it clear for everybody what you want from using this concept or that, and what the difference between them. And even when it comes to specialized workshop, also you will see different schools of thought. That every school of thought thinks that security must go this way or that way. So we have to comfort with this all, and to try to say that security in the last of the day, that security has to do with reconciliation. It must be a reconciliative approach, or approach of reconciliation, depending on security policy, depending on what we think about domestic thing here. And here we bring security from international realm to local realm. Here we are talking about internal security, and how in Palestinian territories that we have different problems regarding rule of law, regarding justice. We have a state of disorder. How security can be changed to meet the security needs of people that live together within an apartheid system from external occupation. So what Palestinian police, what the Palestinian criminal justice system can do within these limitations, and how can we impose peace, and how we can impose order in places that Palestinian police cannot reach, like area C's in area categorized area C's that no presence for Palestinian police there. So we need to find new approaches. How can we achieve peace? We achieve through communal security thing. So here we locate conflict, perhaps transformation, conflict resolution in its local framework. And how can everybody in the realm or in this discipline can react to such concept, and how can be represented again? So this is a challenge. So thank you, Dr. Laura. And I think we have to take this in consideration when we again propose our program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you go back to the other page, not this one, the other one, where you have all the courses? So we can continue we want to go over them, and then we can move to check if there's any other comments that we can help you with.
So you need the program on
the program, not this page, the other one, the first one you showed. Where is the name of the program is?
Here, perhaps you mean this?
لا الصفحة الأولى اللي فرجتنا إياها اللي شفنا فيها reconciliation studies والconflict.
Okay, this one is the same. It's the other version.
Okay.
So it is conflict, reconciliation studies and conflict.
This one, yes. انزل تحت هلا نكمل عشان نشوف. We would like to see what you have also.
We have communal peace and rule of law. Here's a connection between communal peace, its importance, especially in transitional states or in fragile societies, when rule of law is weak. And this clarifies its connection with law and its connection with, let's say, social paralegal social systems, like reconciliation, for example, reconciliation committees that we have in the Palestinian community, that they can intervene in the service of law.
Why you didn't put human rights? Why only communal peace and law? Maybe you can add human rights. Why you didn't also human rights? Do you have human rights?
Yes, we have it in other course. I can present it now. So it is the output of this course is for a student is to recognize what communal peace is, and what the importance of communal peace in the context of transitional societies, and the mechanisms of social of communal peace with each context. I mean, how can communal peace be in a tribal system? How can be, for example, how can be practiced, or how can communal peace be practiced with an ethnic society where ethnic tensions are high, especially when and here also the student is expected to see the interactions between legal system and paralegal, let's say paralegal structures in a state, and how can they be integrated together to work together, not to be in conflict there in their mechanisms. Here is research methodologies.
Okay.
So this is a standard one. Here about communication and communal peace.
Just a question to research methodologies. I would propose to put transdisciplinary research methodologies or something like transdisciplinary research, because it's very typical for reconciliation studies to make it transdisciplinary, and so it's already in the name and you have something special.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes, especially that when you are talking about reconciliation are part of transdisciplinary approaches and senses for self-helping studies. Okay.
So you see how it is connected: reconciliation, conflict transformation, transdisciplinary research. It's all connecting together. So this is how we are coming. So you can add here transdisciplinary research, right? It's okay for you, I guess. This is what we propose for you to make it more stronger.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can go down now.
Sorry for the presentation in Arabic, but
No,
I
it's
don't
okay.
English. We have the old version in English, and I didn't prepare.
It's okay, no problem. I understand it was Gaza, and they were not here, so I thought you, and then they came in. I'm sorry for Al-Azhar University, but I thought you were not in the room, so I put Nizam to present. Was not his day, so I apologize for this.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But thank you, Nizam.
Can I just come in there, Yat? Very quickly. Professor Nizam, I'm listening with very great interest in these topics. I think they're very, very interesting topics, actually. And I think that, your effort to make it relevant to the Palestinian experience on the ground is very laudable. So I want to congratulate you on that. And also link it to the experience that I've had in Myanmar, where we are also working on community peace as a tool for security and for reconciliation. The word we've used there was resilience, community resilience, which is basically saying that communities are so often manipulated from the outside by proxies to become divided. So how do you build resilience within a community to resist outside polarization? and I just wanted to throw that in the mix, but I think it is probably already captured in your framework. The other thing is, in terms of communication and the community peace agenda is, and I'm sure it'll come in here as well, but I just want to emphasize this is social media, because I'm almost certain it'll be the case for you, but I know for us, the battle against social media being used as a spoiling tool, as a polarization tool, as disinformation, getting gullible youths to spreading rumors about each other is massive. So it's almost worth thinking about putting social media also as a separate topic or in the communications agenda or something, but it is become such an important part of the fight for community resilience and stability. Thank you. And perhaps just to say, in terms of, I don't know if it is coming later, but if I were, sitting in Gaza or in, on the west, the West Bank, for example. And somebody said to me reconciliation, the first thing I would say is, I'm not interested because, and this will be why. So to link it to justice in a very overt way, to explain the link between reconciliation and justice, and how reconciliation becomes a way towards justice, not away from it, but towards it. And, I think could be, now I don't know if that's the language you want to use, but perhaps it's already in your framework as well. But that would be a third comment that I would like to make, just to say, transitional justice is one aspect of it, but there's also social justice. There is also judicial justice. There is historical justice. Professor Leiner spoke about narrative truth earlier, and the importance of telling the story as part of justice as well. And so those are my impressions from a very far away position, but I thought I'd just make those three comments.
On the contrary, this is there are great comments, and you hit the point, especially when talking about resilience, and this reminds us with our colleagues when she mentioned the issue of local ownership to reconciliation, and we know the role of proxies also. And when it comes to the Palestinian reality, people are very aware of international intervenience in the domestic issues, especially that we have the political division between Fatah and Hamas, and the role of regional actors in making this conflict more tense, according to their political interest. If it comes to Iran, Israel, Turkey, Arab states, and so on. And if it comes also with the Palestinian society itself, that as a Palestinian has been for a long time non-state or stateless society, there was no institutions, even under the occupation from 1967 until the existence of the Palestinian Authority. So we are talking about 24 years, 25 years or more, that Palestinian society was not part of the Israeli judicial system, or part of the institution of the occupying state. So we have we have legacy on working with these social infrastructures, with these social frames that helps to maintain rule of law and to achieve justice. perhaps due to this historical experience. And now when it comes to the role of the traditional security and police and the criminal justice system, it is weak. It is identified as weak in the Palestinian context because of, first of all, of this ownership thing. Palestinians are not able to lay out their own security vision, okay, due to the existing conflict or the occupation thing. Then they had to maintain security on areas that they control. So they find it difficult. They find it difficult, for example, to deal with arms. And difficult to say that arms are a crime or to criminalize arms handling, or to and for other Palestinians are described as part of rebel against occupation and this legacy. So there's many dichotomies that when it comes to rule of law that wake questions rather than answering them. So for you, Dr. Fanny, thank you. I mean, on this point, I know that practicing this program is important to find out, especially in the pilot year, we can find out the reflection of how these concepts can be applied, or the students or our partners on them. For your other notice about social media thing, I think it is you are right, especially in different states where are non-democratic states, in the Arab context. I think social media plays critical role because the other media or the regular media is absent. So people comes themselves to formulate their opinions about things that happens as a kind of irregular media. And everybody knows the role that they played these instruments in the Arab Springs before about 11 years. We are aware about this to be part of communication and communal peace. How can this instrument, social media, how can be applied for reconciliation thing? How whether it is important to know that conflict or that violent content is not allowed in this media, but sometimes it is used. It is used even in a hide way that even Facebook, for example, administration or other administrators, they can't notice if it is violent, if it is a racial content or so on. So it's a very important thing to have it part of our course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you continue? I would also like to ask, did you talk, I don't see transitional justice or justice. So
Yes.
This is what maybe Professor Fanny wanted to ask you. How did you go into transitional justice and justice? We don't, so we just wait. Let's go up this formulating.
Right. I will leave the transition. No, it's here formulating security policies in the state. We have,
yeah, okay.
And this is the transitional justice and communal.
But here, see, communal, you did it twice now. I prefer that you try restorative justice or justice reconciliation in justice or justice and reconciliation. So try to connect them together. Like you have, yes, you connect the communal piece, but you are you must be more into reconciliation. So you have transitional justice and you have restorative justice. So these are better than to have those, I guess. Instead of putting communal peace, you can put العدالة الانتقالية أو إعادة العدالة اللي هو restorative justice. This is another, and it's not a new, it's another study as well. So as people can, how can you restore justice, restorative justice to people that were in conflict, or how is transition? Those comes together, I guess, well, instead of putting just communal peace and because now it's repeating another course. Anyone who sees communal peace at the one of those courses, and then you see another communal peace in the other course. So what's the difference between the communal peace 1 and communal peace 2? I would prefer that you do propose that you do transitional justice and restorative justice. Yeah, and the difference between them in reconciliation process.
I agree with this kind, but perhaps I agree also with Dr. Leiner once he mentioned that transitional justice is not all the time about reconciliation.
Yeah.
It is here the point. Or we should not all the time regard the transitional justice as part of reconciliation as well. It has relation with reconciliation, but it is not reconciliation.
No, that's
as
why
you all know,
yeah.
It is a system that is created in a specific, let's say, in a specific circumstances. And if we go in Palestine again, we find that the emergency law that is during the corona epidemic has been imposed on the Palestinians by the Palestinian Authority itself. So, and here, when imposing the emergency law, it has to do with transitional justice sometimes. That you can apply kind of laws and kind of let's say regulations that are not used in ordinary situation. And here is with Dr. Fanny's question about understanding the context of transitional justice in a specific context or in fragile societies. With regard to Dr. Iyad's comment about relation between transitional justice and communal peace, here, as you see the output of the course, that the students will be able to connect or to find a correlation between transitional justice and reconciliation and communal peace. How can sometimes understanding transitional justice as part of reconciliation, but is not the reconciliation itself. Reconciliation perhaps use different tactics than transitional justice do. And especially in this context that I am mentioning now, mentioning that even applying transitional justice is not in favor in different or in different situations, are not in favor with reconciliation. Perhaps Dr. Leiner has his own account on this. I don't know how he can reflect it here, but I think there is a difference, and we need to clarify this difference between transitional justice and reconciliation.
So maybe briefly, I think you are correct, but therefore there should be at least something in this course to put this on the table and to make this clear to the students, the relationship between transitional justice and reconciliation approach. And because reconciliation is on justice, and justice is very important, but there can be measures of transitional justice which are creating at least tensions towards reconciliation, and people can have another motivation to work for transitional justice and reconciliation, maybe rule of law or punishment of perpetrators after maybe a system change where you have also transitional justice, but which is also correct and acceptable to have this motivation, but this should be clarified. So I would propose to put it at least in the syllabus or in the title to relate it to the reconciliation approach.
Okay. Dr. Yad, shall I go with?
Yeah, continue.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we should also think a bit about of Ramadan.
Yeah.
Yes. Perhaps you know, we are in the last
Prepare
quarter.
something to eat now.
People are tired.
We're nearly done for this session, but if you have the last thing you would like to present, maybe we can let him present the last thing. And
Yes, I prefer also this.
Okay.
Here is an, let's say it's an optional course about security sector governance. And we believe that good security sector governance or security sector governance apply or I think is in favor of reconciliation. And I believe that security sector reform is a part of reconciliation because, for example, in security reform, we have what we know the DDR. The DDR is the demilitarizing or demobilizing and reintegration of ex-combatants. It is a voluntary thing, you know. It is a thing that is used by the agreement of people. Also, putting security policy. Security policy must be backed by society and by a legislative council and so on. So security sector governance is an approach that perhaps can be applied for communal peace and for reconciliation as well. I don't know, perhaps we can share this proposal another time and we can have also further discussion on it because as I find here, time is not working with us to make full presentation of this program, Dr. Yad, or?
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's because of, no problem. You can continue if you like, or we can, next session that we give to Al-Azhar University to present, and then we come back to you. What do you think? How do you think, Professor, we should proceed? Professor Leiner.
Yeah, I think it's important not to make too much hurry, but to take time to go into the programs and also to reflect, to make it as good as possible, everything. And so therefore, I think we should now maybe take next time a bit more time for the programs and have both to have Al-Azhar. From my side, also the apologies because they were planned to do it and have time for Istiqlal as well.
So you prefer, this is for everyone, you prefer that next session that Istiqlal University continues and after they finish, Al-Azhar University starts. Is that what you prefer that we do for next session?
I think this would make sense to make it this way around. And to reserve some more time for this. And,
I think it's better as well. So
I agree.
Okay, so we continue.
I just have one comment, and I just like to make this comment because at the moment, Professor Fani Zoutoua is here, and he brought up the idea of resilience. And I was thinking, I don't know if this would be applicable, and that's the question to Dr. Nizam and everybody else, but thinking of community resilience, and under that, having transitional justice, thinking about restorative justice, thinking about reconciliation, but having an umbrella of, communal resilience in order to keep to the communal peace framework that you already have, and then have that as an umbrella. I don't know if that would work, but that's just an idea that came to me as I was listening to Professor Fani Zoutoua.
I think also Professor Fani has mentioned the same, but yes, when the issue of resilience itself is problematic, as you know. Perhaps it is matter of understanding how community itself may react to different policies, either domestic policy, either policies imposed by regional actors. So yes, and as you, Dr. Laura, Dr. Fani has mentioned, I think that is must be defined, must be located in its social context that can interact well with it, with the hosting culture that can respond to resilience itself as an idea.
I would like maybe if you, I will follow Professor Fanny and Dr. Laura on maybe you can add justice and communal resilience, this kind of type of a course. And under it, you'll have transitional justice, restorative justice, all what communal peace, it all will be under that, you know, and this you can teach them everything. Yeah. So it will be like instead of like putting yourself borders, it will open for you more border, and it will make people more attracted to your course, because everyone will tell you what is justice. You missed justice in the courses. So I think justice is important to teach them what is justice, transitional justice, restorative justice, resilience, communal peace. It can be, like the title would be justice and communal resilience. I think that would be, and then under it, all of these topics that you can add under it. I think that's a proposition that you can also take with it.
Yes, perhaps this may be also considered. Let's say in a conceptual frame, we can lie all these, and perhaps Dr. Fanny himself, Dr. Laura, can be part of this discussion in the future on how to recode this with the syllabus and with the teaching methods for all the courses, not only the transitional justice course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I'd be very happy to do that, but I speak only for myself when I say that I often think best on paper, Prof. Nizam. So it might be an idea for us to write to each other and perhaps work with it. You know, this discussion is very valuable. I can see that, but it is also possible for us to maybe you know, do a bit of that on email and see it in front of you, and then it is maybe also easier to think of it systematically in that way. But very happy to be involved in that. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
And if you can also translate this to English as well, you know that we will submit it for the EU, and it must be also online. And this it's better to. It's good. It's in Arabic. It's very good. And I think, but we also need it in English. So this is as well. And if you want to any corresponding, please put us always in CCs and everything. So as you know, the YANA team wants to be intact. You have Laura is also part of us as well now, so you know her. She's in practice. She's doing our practice work as well, assisting us in that, and Professor Leiner as well. So don't forget to put us in CC, and then we start, you know, circulating with everyone as well. So I thank you, Dr. Nizam. I think we have to now put here Introduction to Political Science that we reached here. And I thank also everyone who came here as well. We understand that Al-Azhar University wanted to present today, but I thought you did not come back. So I let Nizam present, but it's we can continue next week. What do you think, professors of Al-Azhar University?
I was very much waiting for Professor Nizam to finish and to also present our program from Al-Azhar University. But since we have no time for today, it's okay. We can present our program next Friday.
Oh, thank you.
So we could do that next Friday.
شكرا لك دكتور مخيمر، يسعد مساك.
هلا بيك، مساء الخير. اهلا دكتور نزام. الله يخليك.
Yes, so I think this is also, we talked about Erasmus Plus supervisor about this workshop, and they say, yes, it's good to have it, so we can develop our skills and develop other people's skills. So like if Nizam is talking about his program, we can learn from what he is doing. So does that mean that everyone attends all the 10 sessions? It's not just for the one university. The sessions are for all the sessions, so you can learn from each other. It's called exchange knowledge. Yeah, so thank you very much, Dr. Abu Saada. We really appreciate it. And Dr. Abdel Anazi, we appreciate as well that he is with us, and everyone as well. I think maybe Professor Omar wanted to say something. Professor Omar?
Hello, Dr. Riyad.
هلا.
دونك ما مش عارف انا بدي احكي معكم العربي. احنا ان شاء الله الاسبوع الجاي بنقدم لانه هلا صار وقت متاخر اتوقع.
اوكي بتقدر تحكي بالفرنسي كل ما في كمان بالفرنسي.
Donc, concernant notre programme de master, je préfère la semaine prochaine, next week, parce que en fait, je suis très fatigué maintenant. C'est pour ça.
Oui, on comprend, on est fatigué, c'est Ramadan. Mais la prochaine fois, on a aussi une lecture proposée de Fanny Dutoit.
Oui.
Isn't it? So
Yes.
maybe it would be too much to have three presentations. I think it's already something we must do, to work very concentrated for the two, the rest of Istiklal and the other.
I totally agree with Dr. Martin. I don't think we can do 3 presentations on one
Docteur
time.
Iyad, oui. En fait, on doit modifier quelque chose, surtout le titre de notre programme de master. Il faut le changer, et je crois, parce qu'il y a des notes. On va discuter de tout ça, je crois, la semaine prochaine. Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de remarques.
Oui.
Oui. Donc, on a besoin d'un coup de main pour le faire, pour le modifier.
Okay, I just want to say like the one for Patra University, Professor Omar is from Patra University, so he speaks French and Arabic. And I wanted to say that he will present not next week, but with Professor Burke from Human Rights and International Law will present his lecture. Then we will let Omar present his work because he's in law and the Faculty of Law at the University of Patra, and they are developing a master program in law, reconciliation and public law, and they would be more benefit when the professor from Brussels will be as well there. So this is, I prefer that you present when he is here with us, so he can really give you very good comments on your work and what you have to do exactly. I think it's I think that's where I'm putting, we think that you should present. So next week, I prefer that we continue with Professor Nizam, and we move from Professor Nizam to Al-Azhar, and they can take as much time, even if we need a third session for Al-Azhar to continue as well. We'll do it one by one, and we have 10 sessions, so we don't have to hurry. No need to hurry. So thank you, everyone, for being with us. And I just want to tell you, always, everyone has to come with us. I know some people are not here, but they apologize for not being here, but it's okay. Next time we will assist that everyone will be here. Yeah, and I think we'll have a bigger group. Of course, I would like to present for you Professor Fanny Dutoit. He's an expert in human rights reconciliation and the head of UNDP in Iraq, Ghana, South Africa. So he has a very expertise in practical reconciliation and development, and he will give us the second lecture next week, inshallah, and then we continue with the Nizam, Istiklal, and then we move to Al-Azhar. So thank you, everyone, and Ramadan Kareem.
Okay. Thank you.
Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next
Ramadan
week.
Kareem.
Bye.
Thank you.